Hi, I'm Mike Masnick. I'm the founder of a company called Floor 64 and the editor-in-chief of the blog Techdirt, which is a product of Floor 64. I'm here at CES covering the show, but mostly interested in the Innovation Policy Summit that is going on during the show. You know, you have a world where we used to be in a place where there were, if you wanted to be a musician, for example, and you know, it applies in slightly different ways for all different kinds of content, but if you wanted to be a musician, you had to go through a series of gatekeepers, and there was a very small number of gatekeepers, and you basically had to, you know, win the lottery. You had to be picked. You had to be good, but you also had to be picked to do that. If you weren't, then you had no career. Whereas the world today is something very, very different, which is that people can go direct. There are still options if they want to go to some of these larger players, or there are lots of other little players that have entered the market that allow artists to have a lot more control over what they do. And sort of a perfect example of that is you look at the case in Sweden. In Sweden, the Pirate Bay, which is sort of perhaps the most famous site that is often used for infringement, is considered one of the worst sites out there for the people who are very upset about these things. That it was started in Sweden, was a huge, very, very popular in Sweden, used widely across the board, tremendous amount of infringement in Sweden. Then a few years later, a company launched in Sweden called Spotify, which also based in Sweden, and suddenly became hugely successful, lots of people doing it, but that was a legitimate service and a legal licensed service. And if you look at the rates of copyright infringement for music in Sweden, it dropped off a cliff. And suddenly everyone was paying for Spotify. And the answer there was not passing stricter laws or going after pirates or doing anything like that, but it was coming up with a really good, innovative, useful service that people wanted to pay for that provided a better service than what piracy offered them. The industry as a whole has grown. It's just that the money is going in different directions, going to different people. And so you have, you know, people who were there who were disrupted and they're upset and they tell a story saying that everything is horrible, but you're missing that wider picture. It is challenging for people who were, you know, focused on the old way of doing things. But historically, every time that's happened, you know, the industries have figured out ways to make it work. And so, you know, focus on the bigger picture, not, you know, narrowly like these particular companies. If they don't adapt, then that's the nature of innovation and capitalism, is that they, you know, have to adapt or they run into trouble.